Hello, and thanks for watching. So this video is about JoinFS and the variables system that was implemented in the latest version. So some things I've just sort of poked about and found out myself, some have been explained to me by other people, but I just thought it might be useful to document some basic information about the system. So as you probably know, Pete, the developer, stepped back from JoinFS quite some time ago, so it's now unsupported, though it is open source now, so you can poke about in the code, and if you know about these things, take it forwards. That'd be fantastic. So I'm going to look at a situation that was pointed out to me today, whereby in the simulator, if you make a recording that involves lowering and raising the flaps, you can see the lever going down and back up when you play back the recording, but you can't actually see the flaps moving themselves. So I was a little bit intrigued by this, why this should happen, and it seems to be related, well, it is related to the variables that are being recorded. Now, if you look on the JoinFS website, in the manual, in the variables section, there's a brief description about how it works and what format the files need to be in. And it lists the ready-made files that will be used by default. However, you can manipulate these files to update them or introduce more things or take things out if you want to. You just have to stick to this format here. So the first bit, the dataref name, this is what Explain uses for its variables, and SimConnect name is what Microsoft use. And then these other things after it, I don't really understand, to be honest, but never mind. And if you want to find out what variables are available, you can do a search. So if you were to search for MSFS SimVars, so Microsoft call them SimVars, sim variables, takes you to the SDK. If you expand down here, you get a bit of information for each sort of type of control. So if we look at the controls, so these SimVars here are for the ailerons, elevator and flaps, so we'll be looking at this a bit later on. I don't really understand what settable means. I assume that's probably to do with aircraft developers and whether they can define certain values for their aircraft. Explain has a similar kind of thing. You could search for Explain data refs, and you could look for the current ones in the current version. And if I was interested in data refs that refer to the flaps, we'd search for flap, and then this is the category that it's in, and then these are the actual data refs. But there isn't much of a description here. For this problem, I'm just interested in the Microsoft things. So the first thing I want to know is which files is JoinFS going to use for this aircraft that I'm in. Now I've chosen the default G1000 Cessna 172, and if we look to see the aircraft list, here it is listed. I don't need to be connected to a network at all for this, only have to be connected to the simulator. If I right click on the aircraft and go to Assign Variables, this window tells me which files are currently in use for it. So it's going to be plane and single prop. Let's take a look at those files. So as stated in the manual, these files are stored in the My Documents folder. Let's look at single prop first of all. So most of the entries in here seem to relate to the engine primarily. Can't see anything in there that relates to the flaps. Let's look in the other one. So there's a lot more in this one. Let's search for flap. and it's found something. Okay, so there's only one line that relates to the flaps, this one here. So it only seems to be related to flaps handle percent. So it looks like it's only recording the position of the lever control in the cockpit, and it's not recording the position of the actual flaps themselves. Let's put that theory to the test. So there's a tool in JoinFS which will be very useful here. So go to View, Monitor, and in this new window, right click and choose Variables. Now in this window we will see any variable that JoinFS is detecting displayed, and there's a refresh button at the bottom of it that you can click to force immediate refresh. I think it only updates the entries in there periodically otherwise. Right, so let's look at the cockpit. If we turn on battery power and refresh the monitor, you can see it's detected electrical master battery being turned on. 1 is on, 0 is off. If we lower the flaps now, so it's detected the flaps handle has gone to 1, so 1 fully down. Bring the lever back up. Okay, so that's the only thing that it detected there, just that control being moved. So this would explain why if you make a recording and then look at the recorded aircraft, you don't see the flaps moving up and down, because JoinFS is not detecting that variable. So what I'd like to know now is there a different variable that we could use? In the flaps SimVar section, we have got, so here's the flaps handle percent, that's the one that's already in use. Lower down we've got some values for trailing edge flaps angles, index and percent. The one that's using percent, there's a reference to it being available in multiplayer to all near aircraft. So it sounds like that one might be successful. So I'm going to make a copy of plain.txt and we'll give it a name. And we'll open it up. This line here is the one that's referring to the control handle. Let's copy that. And then we want to change some of the values. So I don't want it to be talking to X-plane at all, because I don't know what value we need in there, so I'm going to just delete that. I don't know what the implication of these are, and actually, because I'm doing this with hindsight, I know that it won't work if we have this in here. Do we need injected? Probably, I'm guessing. Let's leave it there for the time being. Then we'll copy the SimVar. So we're going to go with trailing edge flaps left percent. Copy that. And we'll paste that in place of the flaps handle percent. So that's going to do the left flap, and presumably we just need an identical entry for the right. Okay, we'll save this file. And then we need to tell JoinFS to use the new file instead of the old file. So right click and assign the variables. We don't want plain text anymore, so we'll get rid of that. And we're going to add plain mod. OK. And I think once we've made that change, we probably have to close JoinFS and open again. So now I'm going to start a JoinFS recording, and we'll use the monitor window to see what JoinFS is detecting. So we must remember to turn on the variables in the monitor window. And we'll just make sure that that is refreshed so it's all up to date. And then we'll go File, Recorder, start the recording. Drop the flaps, look at the monitor. Okay, so it has detected some trailing edge flaps and the handle. Bring that back up. And handles back up, and the percentage has gone to 0 for the flaps. Looking good. Let's stop that recording. So we'll start that recording playing back and immediately pause it, because you can see that we've now got two aircraft all of a sudden parked one on top of another. So we'll move one out of the way. Carry on the playback. Okay, so it's not a smooth motion. Obviously JoinFS is only detecting changes at each stage, but the flaps are coming down and up. That's good. Now let's get inside the other aircraft and see if we can see the lever moving. So in our aircraft list, we just right click on the one with the R, the recorded one, and do Enter Cockpit. So we're now sitting inside the recorded aircraft. I'm not going to click on the lever. We'll just rewind the recording and play. I'm not clicking. There we go. Lever was recorded going down. Okay, so let's fix the problem. We've now got both the lever and the flaps moving. Now the downside of us manipulating these files is only we can see this. If you were in a multiplayer situation and you wanted other members of the group to be able to see what you could see, you'd have to make sure that you distribute the new file and all the members of the group assign that variables file to the aircraft that they're flying. So a bit of a faff. And finally, just before I go, I'll show you one more thing. So a friend made an add-on that puts aerobatic smoke into one of the aircraft in Microsoft 2020. So we had to modify the variables file so that JoinFS could detect that aerobatic smoke and transmit it to the other members of the group. So this is the plain.txt file, and these are the relevant entries. The aircraft's got 3 different coloured smoke, so there are several entries. So the basic entry is that it's going to be an integer value. It's just relating to Microsoft, so there's nothing in here in the X-plane value. This is to do with the code that he put in it. I don't know what Boolean means there. Then there's no other option there, and it's a value that's going to be injected. But what I wanted to show you was that in this line here, I was terribly clever, and I was using X-plane at the time. So I was a bit sad that I couldn't take part in any element of the displays where smoke was needed, because I had no way of transmitting to everyone else that I was puffing smoke. So what I did was I found a variable in X-plane, a data ref, that wasn't being used for that aircraft, and I mapped a button to this variable, that window heat tog, and then I just entered that data ref in the first part of this line. So then in X-plane, when I pressed that button, even though I couldn't see aerobatic smoke in my own sim, I knew that I was transmitting to JoinFS that I was puffing smoke, and the rest of the team could see this smoke here, which smoke 5 is central white smoke, just as you'd expect. So I could at least take part in the displays. So the problem was there's no data ref in X-plane at the moment for aerobatic smoke, so I was kind of bodging the job really. But this is how you can mess about with the values with the variable system. Okay, bye bye.